Have you ever found yourself dipping in, rubbing really hard, and leaving the best part of your effort on a paper towel? In that case, the next time you're dry brushing, I recommend losing the paper towel. I'm the Middling Modeler, and this is just the tip. Before we get to the tip, a little foreplay first. The Mitsubishi A6M3 Zero Fighter Model 32, or Hamp, from Tamiya in 1/72nd scale. My first 1/72nd scale aircraft, actually. I finished it a while back, had a few issues, mostly of my own making, and in the end had a middling result. So I decided to put it on a base, because that will make up for the mediocre build. As part of the base, I wanted a nameplate, so I went over to my 3D printer and printed one up. Here's what you're going to need. Paint, a dry brush, or two in this case. I have a few inexpensive makeup brushes that I bought, and they will work. Are they as good as purpose-built dry brushes like those made by Artist Opus or Monument Hobbies? In my opinion, no, they're not. Those purpose-made dry brushes are a little bit better. But for the little bit of dry brushing that I'm doing today, don't really need anything that fancy. You will want a textured, non-absorbent surface. You could have a texture palette like the ones you can get from Artist Opus, or if you're like me and you have a spare lunch tray laying around that has a textured surface, you can use that. You may also want a dampening cup, which is a sponge in a small dish. If you don't have one of these, you can do what I did. That was to take a small container that I had laying around. I found these containers in the soap aisle at Hobby Lobby, and they're also very handy for scraping pigment powder into when you're making homemade pigment powder from pastel sticks. Now, before we get to the actual dry brushing, we need to talk. Normally, when you see someone dry brushing, when they go to unload the brush, they're doing it on a paper towel or a rag or something like that. This is problematic. The reason being is because it disproportionately unloads the brush. You want to unload paint from the brush. Paint is made of two parts, pigment and medium. Medium is the liquid that the pigment is suspended in. When you rub the dry brush against a paper towel, you get a disproportionate unloading of the brush. Way more medium comes out than pigment. This can give you a chalky finish when you apply it to whatever surface you're dry brushing. And that's why we have the lunch tray. You can use that as the unloading surface. It has some texture so you can see it working, and it does not unevenly unload the brush. For the nameplate, the first thing that I did was base coat it with a dark brown color. In this case, it was matte coffee bean from Krylon. If you're trying to dry brush a surface to make it look like it's bronzed or brass, anything in that golden hue, it's good to start with a brown base. It doesn't have to be the Krylon color that I used here. It can be any kind of a dark chocolate brown base. With the base color on, I'm going to then start applying my first layer of dry brushing. This is going to be burnt tin from AK. Doesn't have to be that color. Go with what you like. I particularly like it for this particular effect. I'm going for a slightly heavier dry brush, so I want a little bit more paint coming off when I test it on the back of my hand. Once I've applied that, I can move on to a smaller, firmer brush, and I can apply the next color that I have planned. For this second round of dry brushing, I chose Old Gold from AK Interactive. Again, you don't have to choose this paint, you can choose what you want, but that's what I'm going with for this round. I'm also using a slightly firmer, slightly smaller brush so that I can catch just the details that I want and make them stand out just a little bit brighter than the original burnt tin color that I put down. For a more in-depth instruction on dry brushing and some of the amazing things you can do with that technique, I recommend watching the Artist Opus video on that. Byron does an amazing job of presenting that information. Well, I think that just about covers it, though I might add a figure somewhere on here, see if I can bring a little more life to it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Happy hobbying.